Today we're going to lay out our 3-tread winder, and these are some of the details that I have. You'll be getting this handout. So the total rise is 56 inches, my unit run is 8 1/4 inches, my nosing is 1 inch, 2 treads before a 90, we can see that here, there's 1, 2, and then it turns this 90 degrees up here. This whole section here is our winder section, or a 3-tread winder. That's a winder, that's technically a kite, and that is a winder. And then we have 2 normal treads beyond that up above. But what's most important to me right now for doing a full-scale drawing of this winder section here is that I have a 23-inch outside to outside of stringer. So from outside of this stringer to outside of this stringer that's hidden here is 23 inches. Same, outside of this stringer to outside of that stringer on a straight line across is 23 inches. My newel post, this guy right here, is 3 by 3 inches, and upper and lower stringers are both mortised into the newel post. Outside left stringers to be housed. These are housed stringers, and these ones are cut stringers. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw this part here. So we're going to do it to full scale. So here's a look at some of the tools that we're going to need to lay this out. We've got a beam compass here with a pencil holder in the end, and of course a pin on the other end. It's fully adjustable. But I also made this here. This is just a scrap of wood that I found around the shop. Drilled a hole big enough to put my pencil in, and at the appropriate length I laid out a point where I'm just going to drive a nail through there, a little finishing nail, to use that as my point so I can use it as a beam compass. Just wanted to do that so that you could see. It's probably less accurate than actual beam compass. However, if you got scraps on the job site, which we always do, you can make one out of whatever you find around there, or you can just use your tape measure. Anyway, that's there. I'm going to need my square, my pencil. I'm not going to need the calculator for this one right here. I'm just going to lay this out, and what I'm going to end up doing is laying out something that looks like this. So this is plan view looking down from the top. I'm going to draw my winder, kite winder, and my newel, and my 2 stringers on the outside. So this is the look that I'm going to get. I'm going to end up drawing it like this, with this corner right here. I'm going to draw it full scale. Now this is something that you can do on the job site too. If you didn't have a piece of paper that was large enough, you could snap everything down on a piece of plywood. I got a nice piece of G1S ply right here that I'm going to use. Ordinarily, we do this right in the shop, or sorry, right in the classroom. But this year we're going to do it down in the shop. So grab yourself a piece of plywood and just use one edge of it. You might not be able to find a piece of G1S, but that's fine. This will be accurate enough. It would be better than trying to lay it out on the bench surface here, which is full of nail holes and spots where people have accidentally gone a little too far through. So first thing I want to do on this is draw myself a 23-inch square, so a 23 by 23, because that's what our plans say right here, that this is 23 inches across from outside of stringer to outside of stringer. So I'm going to start with my corner here, mark out my 23 inches, and I'll do the same going up this way. Okay, so I let that go by, that's okay. I'm gonna just erase that so that when I draw my newel post in that corner there, I'm not confused with all these extra lines. There's gonna be quite a few lines that converge at that point right there. So next step that I wanna do, since I know that's my newel, I know that there's a stringer running across here and a stringer running across here. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw them. And I'm gonna draw them at 5/8 of an inch in and parallel to the outside. So again, this is marking my stringer. There's one stringer, this will be a house stringer, and this will be a house stringer up this way. So I need to get my line at 5/8. Okay, that stringer will carry on up that direction. I crossed these up here, and that's okay. That'll give me the option to decide what I want to do later on at this intersection point. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I would take my beam compass, set it to 12 inches, and I'm going to draw an arc around this way from the center of the newel post here. So everything's going to be laid out now from the center of the newel post, but in the absence of a beam compass, I would use this right here. So this is 12 inches from the very center here to the center here. Then I'm just going to take a finishing nail and drive it through here. I'm going to get close and I'm going to put it through. There you go. We can see that that's going to work there now. And so I picked 12 inches to draw my arc through here. So there's my center, and I'll draw this arc around like that. That's 12 inches now from there to there. And the reason I picked 12 inches is that our ordinary line of travel is 12 to 18 inches. That's how far away from the edge of the tread that you would walk on a normal travel. Now, if you remember back to basic when we were bisecting and trisecting angles, what we want to do is trisect this angle. So this is a 90 here, and what we want is a line at 30 and a line at 60 degrees off the zero. So the easiest way to do that is to trisect this. So now I've still got the same radius set on here. Whether I use 12 or 18 inches, or even if I used 6 inches, it doesn't matter. As long as my radius remains the same, I'm going to step once from this point to give me that point of reference right there. Next, I'm going to step once from here, and that gives me that point right there. Next thing that I want to do is I'm going to take this point through there and run a line all the way out through into my stringer out here. This line right here is going to indicate my front of riser. So one, and I slide it along here. I'm just going to run that long again. What I'm going to do is, this is a housed stringer, so it will be set inside the stringer just a little bit here, and I'll decide that later on, how deep I'm going to go with that. But there's my front of riser coming all the way across here. This already indicates front of riser for my first winder. There's my first winder right there. Front of riser is right there. This is it in plan view. So next, I'm going to look at, this is my kite, riser to my kite, and now I'm going to go from my kite to my next winder. So let's start at the corner again. Go through my trisection point. Run that out there. Okay, so you can mark that on there if you like. Front of riser, front of riser, front of riser, and front of riser. So now the things that we're going to have to lay out from there, we're going to have to go forward 1 inch for our nosing on each of these, and then we're going to have to go back 5/8, which is the thickness of our riser stock, and we're going to draw a dotted line for that. But what's important here is when we're laying this out, that I don't come off this point again. So my nosing here at the bottom, my first winder, is going to be 1 inch in that direction. My line of travel is this direction, so my nosing is coming into my line of travel this way, this way, this way. So I want to have 1 inch parallel line to this, so it means 1 inch from there, 1 inch from here, straight line all the way across there. So I'm going to lay that out on this. Let's draw this line solid as well. And I just ran it long. That's the front of nosing, front of riser. And I'll do my front of nosing here, here, and here also. Again, 1 inch on each of them. You see, things are starting to converge all in this one point here where our newel post is. That's what makes a newel post such a challenging thing to lay out. But we'll have all the answers right here on paper. See, everything's sort of converging here. And you can see that this is front of nosing here. And if you could look at this, visualize it, that is, there is this much of this winder visible before you hit the front of the next riser right there. So you can see that this nosing actually at this point actually extends over top of, it's farther ahead than this nosing right here, which is why we can't have 4-tread winders anymore. It used to be a thing, but we can't because it just gets way too steep. We need to have a minimum amount of run here because this is our line of travel that we'd be walking on. We need space to put your foot on. If I threw a 4th tread in there, you can imagine how tight this becomes. We'll go ahead and label this. This is front of nosing. This is front of riser. Okay, so in this I'm just going to label on the back here riser, nosing, nosing, and riser. Same here. Okay, now I want to draw the back side of my riser also, because I'm going to need to mortise it out when it goes into the newel post, and I also need to mortise it out here where it hits the house stringer. So at this point, I'm going to draw my lines 5/8 of an inch back, and I'll draw them in a dotted line, just so it doesn't get too confusing, or any more confusing than it already is. All right, you can see I keep saying it, but there's a lot happening right here. Location of that riser out at this point is not too important to us, so I took less time with my drawing. So out at this point I may want to darken it up because this is where it's going to matter to me in the end. Hey, again, 5/8 back from this one, and so on. Now this is the very center of our newel post right here. So what we're going to have to draw now is the outside of our newel post. So if this newel post is 3x3, we're going to go 1.5 inches this way and 1.5 inches this way to lay it out. So we're back to our original 23x23 inch square. This line, that point that we turned everything off of there, 1.5 inches in and 1.5 inches in the other direction. There's my newel post. You can take out unnecessary lines. Now this line here, for example, the nosing, It's only going to be set into my newel post about 1/4 of an inch, so it really only needs to go to about there. In the end, that's where I'm going to be mortising out to. But this is everything that we need to know, all in plan view, all there for us to lay out. What becomes challenging now is when we're in the shop, taking this and stretching these all out. If our rises were 7 inches, so there's going to be 7 inches between this tread and this tread and this tread and this tread. So we have 4 different rises on here. So that's going to take up 28 inches of newel post, and it turns around the corner here. But the location of each of those mortises on the newel post is in plan, is given to us right here. And all we need to know is where they line up vertically. And if the math works out too, that it's 7 inches between each of them, well, it's 7 inches from the top of that tread to the top of that tread, and then 7 from the top of that one to the top of that one, and so on. So each of these lines, when we draw them on our newel post, are just 7 inches apart. We would draw front of nosing, and then back of riser, front of riser, and back and front of riser, go vertically up and down 7 inches to the top of the next tread. Anyway, so make sure you get a drawing, get a nice piece of paper, do a drawing, and then look after your drawing, write your name on it, and take care of that, because you're going to be referring to it quite a bit.